Yesterday, the government of Canada made a new announcement saying that people who are in Canada on visitor visa can no longer apply for a work permit from inside Canada. In this case, is flag polling an option? We'll discuss those details in this video. Before we get started, my name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. If you need any help with your immigration applications or consultations, feel free to reach out. My contact information is here and in the description. Now let's get started. First of all, let's get into the details of the announcement. So the government has said that if you come to Canada on a visitor status, and even if you find a job and you want to apply for a work permit, you cannot apply for a work permit from inside Canada. You have to leave the country, apply for a work permit at a Canadian consulate in your home country, and then come here as a worker. This was always the rule before COVID, but during COVID, they allowed people to file work permits inside Canada. Now they're going back to the old rule where you have to go back to your home country and file for a work permit. In this situation, will flag polling work or not? The answer is yes and no because it depends entirely on your personal situation. So let's understand what flag polling is. Flag polling means you go to a border at a port of entry, you temporarily leave the country, turn around, and ask the CBSA officer at the border to issue you a work permit or a study permit or any other immigration document. So you're making an application on the spot to get your work permit. That's called flag polling. Now, let's talk about two types of visitors who are in the country on visitor status. So, type 1 is someone who is coming here purely as a tourist. They made a tourist visa application in their home country. They said, I'm coming to Canada to visit tourist spots, meet my family, friends, cousins, and then I will leave. So, that is category 1, that is purely a tourist. That person is on visitor status in Canada. The other type of people who are on visitor status in Canada can be people who were previously here as students, or they were here as workers, then their work permit or study permit expired, and then they applied for a visitor status to maintain their legal status in Canada. So they are currently on legal status, on visitor status in Canada. So these are the two types of visitors. Now, unfortunately, this policy applies to both types of visitors. The policy of that you have to leave and come back on a work permit applies to both types of visitors, whether you came here purely as a tourist or you came here as a student or worker and now you're a visitor. So both people need to leave the country. Now let's come back to flag polling strategy. Now, flag polling is legally allowed for both these groups. Both types of visitor status people can go to the border and ask at the port of entry to be issued a work permit. Legally, it is allowed. Legally, both groups of these visitors can do it. Should you do it, or whether it will work, or whether you will get into trouble, depends on which group you belong to. So in my opinion, the first group of people, that those who are purely tourists and now they want a job offer, and now they've secured a job offer, secured an LMIA, and now they're going to the border to ask for a work permit. In this case, flag polling is very, very, very risky and it is not recommended. It is legally allowed, but I would not recommend it because the maximum chances are that you will be denied at the border. Not only will you be denied, technically what will happen is if the officer looks at your file, they will look at your job offer, they will look at your LMIA, and the first thing they will ask you is, how did you get this job offer? They will look at your tourist visa file and they will say that you declared in your tourist visa application that you are coming to the country purely as a tourist to visit your friends, to visit your family, to see tourist destinations. You came here and you started searching for jobs, and now you have an LMIA. So they will really grill you and ask you some very tough questions, and most probably what will happen is they will deny you, but not just the denial of the work permit will happen, they might also issue you a notice to leave the country. So they will allow you inside the country with a letter that says this is an order to leave Canada within the next 2 weeks, within the next 1 month. Book a flight, book an itinerary, and inform us about your departure date and leave the country. So they're ordering you to leave the country. Now, if you're lucky, that is all that will happen. But what else can happen is more serious. They might put a charge of misrepresentation on you, meaning they might say you lied on your initial tourist visa application, saying that you're just coming here to as a tourist, but you lied. You were actually coming here to search for a job. And a misrepresentation allegation, if it is true, will attract a 5-year ban and future barriers to entry. So that's what might happen to people who came here purely as a tourist. Now, this is not a rule. Sometimes, depending on your luck, depending on the officer, depending on the strength of your documentation and your explanation, some people might still succeed and get work permits at the border. But the maximum chances are that what I just described, the negative outcome, that is most likely to happen. Now let's talk about the second category of visitors, namely the people who were on study or work permit. Their work permit expired, they went on visitor status, and now they want to apply for a work permit again. Now, without leaving Canada, they're going to Flagpoling to apply for a new work permit. So this group's situation is slightly better than the tourist situation. So basically, you can carry all your documentation and explain to the officer why you're flagpoling and why you're asking for a work permit. In this case, depending on your work permit, your legal status in Canada, your history in Canada, the strengths of your documentation, the officer may grant you a work permit, and you may end up getting work permit from within Canada without going back to your home country. Technically, it is from outside Canada because you've approached a border services officer. So in this case, yes, it is legally allowed, and yes, the chances of success are there. But it is also again a legally risky strategy. Your best and the safest bet is to leave the country and then get it. Flag pulling is an option, but know your risks. And most importantly, if you're in the second category, then you better carry with you all the documents, your letters of explanation, your application files, your job offers, LMIs, everything has to be carried in a very perfect and strong application. If you try to put together this application by yourself or looking at YouTube, Google, then you're likely to make a very weak application and a very negative outcome might happen. So if you're looking to do flag polling and need some legal advice, please feel free to reach out and we'll help you put together a very strong application. Those are the two situations in which flag polling may work and what the risks are. Now, the government has not released complete details about this policy. As they release more details, we'll put them up on our channel. So stay subscribed to this channel. Once again, my name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Here's my contact information and in the description. If you need any paid immigration services or consultations, feel free to contact me.